We're going to do a quick episode today, John. So what are the highlights?
Well, we're going to hit what is the outlook here over the next 2 weeks. We're going to talk a lot about the weather. And most importantly, this is a completely different market than you think it is.
Let's go.
Welcome to Hedge Heads, where hosts John Prishman and Ryan Tungseth discuss commodity markets, hedging, and anything related to trading futures. Remember, the risk of loss in trading commodity interests can be substantial. These are opinions only and not trading advice. While no one knows where the market's going, they're not afraid to share some ideas.
Well, John, we got a special today because it was supposed to be a remote episode, and then I happened to run into town from the lake, so we're doing it live, but it's going to be fast because I am ready to get back on the water. It's like 98 degrees out.
And that's the time of year everyone's busy, but we actually have weather markets. So,
Weather market.
Yes, we haven't had this for 2 years. Even online right now, you're seeing the downplaying of what's happening. And I think it's important to get it right out there. This is in 2012. No one's really saying that. A few guys maybe are comparing it. But it was much worse in 2012, getting worse every day.
I got a point to make because you started talking about weather markets, and it reminded me, I mentioned a few months back.
Yes.
About wheat and my camping trip. And just so you guys know, next week is my camping trip, but it appears wheat is trying to front run my camping trip.
Yeah, and wheat's starting to notice now. Some could say it's kind of has enough rain to get by. It is the wheat market, but others would say it'll start burning up. North Dakota and Minnesota I would say are the garden spots this year. And you have markets that are different than the last 2 years. What does this mean, and what does this mean for price? That's what everybody wants to know.
That's what I want to know.
Okay, so the way the numbers fall, and then you saw with the last USDA report, very constructive. We're losing corn. We're, ending stocks are a little bit less for everything every time. You're not seeing them more. So whether there was the overcounting the production over the last 2 years, and they're starting to fix the numbers, or whether it's just the good old-fashioned demand eating away at the supply, it's starting to go the other way. Now you have hot and dry weather, which happens in the summer. But why this is important, if it is at 183 and it's more like a 179 or even a 181, the numbers change significantly. This is what we've been talking about, and that's why we had our bullish stance even with Iran. It's just this one thing to tip the grains the other way, and we're starting to get there. Now, that being said, we have a weather market, and you need to follow it every day, and the weather does shift. So far, there's not much precipitation in the forecast for anybody. Looks like we're going to cool off next week, maybe, but it can't be 100 degrees the whole summer either. The West is
that.
The West was one of my clients said 108. And their corn looks horrible. They would be considered on the fringe, but that's not the bulk of the corn. Now, it needed that heat, because everybody had pretty good ground moisture. So that's why the ratings went up 1% this week instead of down 1%. So we'll start there. So we're still climbing in the ratings, but next week I'm sure a lot of areas are going to be out of gas, and you're going to start quickly going the other way. So that's really where we're at. We're trending towards drier, and there is not a lot of rain in the forecast. So Sunday night's going to be an interesting night. So what kind of markets is this? What should a guy be doing here? Here's what guys have called and done. They're looking at cheaper calls. That's been very popular to price. Problem is beans aren't very cheap, and they haven't been very cheap. Your calls are pretty high. Bull spreads. What bull spreads? December 26, 27. Corn's been discussed. August, November beans. Obviously, guys got in even before the weather with the idea that beans were going to tighten. That one's been on the move. So you're starting to see these bull spreads come up. Now, we got a little pullback today because, like I said, the crop ratings went up instead of down. I think by next week, you're going to start seeing it trend down again. So it's one of those tricky markets where if you go online, you're gonna read enough to where, like I saw, somebody was putting out a 184.5 yield today, 184.4. You're gonna have a lot of these guys saying the seed's designed for this, and it is, and it can tolerate hot weather. But when you're pushing this crop at 70 plus and at night, that's going to take the top end off without a doubt. So you're getting a lot of that across the country right now. So when you have a yield that's in doubt with the demand that we have, and they, I think what were they, 325 million bushels less demand in corn this next year than we were this year. So you're set up to go higher from here. Now, it doesn't have to go up. Let's say we get a lot of rain in the forecast and it cools off. We could definitely still come down. But the odds are, that pass, every day that passes, the odds are higher that we're seeing low. We've already seen the lows. Again, unless the weather shifts really quick. And you got to get ready for that this time of year. That can definitely happen. So Sunday night, in my opinion, is going to be up quite sharply or down quite sharply.
Would it take a side?
Well, and you know what? I had guys buy the strangles, the out of the money calls on and put for last weekend. With the same idea that it's going to go one direction. It's hard to make it work. It's getting kind of expensive in wheat, and it's getting kind of expensive in beans. But corn, it still works. Other guys were just simply buying and kicking the tires on calls. But I'd say overall, there hasn't been a significant move like this is 2012, get me long at any price. I don't know what to read into that. Is it the sneaky one that kind of flies under everybody's radar and they've been beat down so much that they just think this is just a trick and they don't want to be caught long here? I mean, what are your thoughts, Ryan? I mean, it's an interesting market.
I have zero thoughts on this because of what you just said.
Yeah.
It easily could go. I do think a big move is in order at some point.
Yeah.
But how's that for defining? Like at some point also.
It's going to be hard.
The weather is becoming interesting, but again, I love talking about heat domes and heat units and
it is
all
summer.
That stuff. But it is summertime. It could rain. I just don't know.
It's like a soap opera. We don't have a lot of rain in the forecast that could show up this afternoon in this afternoon's maps. Everyone has different modeling. But you notice how these guys had it right. Remember the mysterious buying when I said their weather guys are a lot better than our weather guys? We're going to find out in 3 days why they bought this. It's exactly what happened. So go with the price action. They have the better weather guys. And right now, dips are still being bought. I would guess dips are still going to be bought. And a lot of discussion about levels and levels where I should sell. 475 has been very popular for December.
I do find it extremely interesting. Sorry, I'm interrupting you when you get to numbers. But 495 December, it just brings it to. I find it interesting that wheat is up fairly significantly, and even today when corn's down, beans obviously have been since April. Corn is not reacting.
No, and it's been the dog all along. That has everything to do with the supply is real. Like, now you can make the argument there's less around than there's been the last 2 years. This area is just swamped with corn, and it's just the way they operate around the year. And it's they feel safe in corn. So it's gonna be different regionally as far as basis goes. But you're starting to see the turns in the markets. I often am very early on the turns, and I've been, we kind of been bullish corn and beans and everything. Well, not so much beans, but corn. But as we progress, beans, obviously with this weather are a lot more bullish virtually overnight. So you have all this potential. And the whole point I've been trying to make here is it's very different than the last 2 years. And what you need to recognize as a producer and as a hedger and a guy that's trying to market well in this isn't the same market as before. Now, anybody can say that. They can get on a mic and say that. But we watch every ticket every day. This is nothing like the last 2 years. I think we were at 412 by this time last year, 415 in December. We were 418 last year at this time. And that's what I'm talking about. You could tell very easily this was going to be a record or near record for the last 2 years at this time of year. Now we don't have that. We don't have that this year. Now, could it be 183? Absolutely, or even above. But you have doubt here, and the doubt spills over into August and September reports, especially the October report, which we haven't had in 2 years. We haven't had. You just knew it was going to be a large number in September and October and November. In November, this year at least we're going to have doubt. And in addition to that, you have the wheat market, which has not been supportive in the least for the last 2 years, is very supportive. So suddenly you have a very different looking market. And that's one thing you really need to work on as a marketer is recognizing what kind of year and what kind of potential and what kind of price potentials we have versus years where we know it's a large crop and what kind of cap are we going to have on the market. And clearly it's been $5, when it's been a large crop, and it's been $3.95 for a low. So you got $5 and $3.95 for a low in the large crop years with good demand. This year, we don't know what the crop's going to be. So now you can start saying this thing could potentially go beyond $5, and then start thinking that way, that this isn't the same as the last 2 years. We saw what it did. This is maybe going to be another level higher. It's not maybe going to be $6, but maybe it's going to be $5.20, $5.40, or $5.40, and it might happen earlier than it happened over the last 2 years. And then start planning your storage and all your strategies around that, and tell the USDA or the weather proves you different. So that's what I'm trying to get at here, is recognizing when a year is different, and it's been different for a long time, with Iran and everything else that's going on, that's now going back on, that could impact stuff significantly around the world. That didn't go away. So the marketing incrementally on these kinds of market is still what you want to do. Do we have enough height in the soybeans now to sell a call and buy a put? You do, but you have a lot of risk doing something like that this time of year.
Yep.
Do we have enough money just to buy a put to lock that bean price in? We're getting there. It's getting very close to where you can get through a lot of these reports and have that floor bought. So strategies are changing because the price is getting high enough now. What do you do in wheat? This is where Ryan and I come in. This is where the phone should be ringing, and it has. I've heard, over the last month from guys I haven't heard from maybe in a couple years, 3 years, something with the last guy. Guys are starting to kind of kick the tires and getting familiar. This is where strategies change, weekly, daily. Guys that were selling calls maybe are pulling back or taking profits in the calls sold. There's all kinds of moving parts here. Much more exciting markets.
Absolutely. I mean, I just wish there were clearer answers, but realistically, there never are. But sometimes there's obvious.
Yeah.
This one, the incremental is a must. Decide on your levels. So you have a plan is a must. But what to do this minute? Sorry.
You have to take it day by day. The weather does shift fairly quickly. If you extend this heat dome, or if the high pressure stays in and kind of sits, which is looking like it's possible, then you're going to have a pretty exciting week next week. And on the other side of the coin, if it starts looking cooler and rainier, you're definitely going to be topping out in these levels for now.
Can't be exciting next week, John. I'm camping. I don't have a computer in front of me.
Usually when you try to get away from the markets and you need it calm, and I know this from fishing, it's going to just be insane. Brexit.
I was just going to say, do you want to tell your Brexit story? Because that's a great one.
Brexit. The other day it was, USDA report when there's always something. It's never calm on vacation. And that's why you shouldn't have positions on for a vacation either.
I do not have positions on unless it's a certain one that I am going to put on Friday.
But you shouldn't have to know all the answers. That's why you have guys like Ryan and I we'll run some ideas by us. One guy is going to have this situation with storage, and we'll go into it with him in strategies that work for him. The next guy is going to, have all storage on farm, and he's going to want to know, just, do I store it? Do I get rid of it here? Everybody's going to have kind of a different journey, but don't be afraid to start running ideas around, because these decisions you can make this time of year can be critical. We often talk about it.
Can I make one request?
Sure.
How do people... many do, but I wish more people knew their exact cost of production.
Yeah, and we have a partnership that we have worked on, and it is now going forward, and we're going to dive into that stuff when you come back from camping, which is going to be in August. We'll kind of premiere that August month with these, exactly what you were talking about. We're going to talk about banks. We're going to talk about numbers. We're going to talk about the weaknesses guys have in not knowing the numbers, not only not marketing correctly, or not knowing where your marketing levels are, or not knowing where your costs are. We're going to tie all that in because it works perfect with our new partnership, and we're going to cover that in great detail.
And I probably shouldn't have asked that way, because it's not like it's just an obvious, like, put some numbers in a spreadsheet and you know it.
No. But I know that it's getting more important because I've had clients that are joining, and I don't remember what it is, American Legacy. There's been some names mentioned on some of this where the guys that specialize in getting the numbers right. Our good friend Theta Farmer,
yeah,
he does the numbers and he helps guys with numbers. That's getting to be more important than ever. Like the whole numbers games.
Well,
obviously,
you only have a couple cents of margin. You better know.
Yeah, obviously we play a big part in that. This is just one section though, but still better rolls, knowing when to roll. Better basis, locking in better basis, and just getting rid of all these fees that everybody's paying for storage are great, starting stepping stones for much better marketing. You don't have to make big changes to take big leaps and bounds, but like you said, that's where all the profit is in these pennies falling through the crack here, left and right. Expenses are getting more expensive. We'll get into all that stuff and talk quite a bit about it extensively in the month of August and beyond. And we'll get into a more complete hedge pictures. But back to what's going on in the grains. Very different market. And just know that there could be significant upside here depending on the forecast. I know that's kind of a wishy-washy thing, but it's still, they put a big one in the bin before it was in the bin. The funds got short. Then there was no money in that side immediately, and they immediately covered their shorts and got long. So they didn't make any money short here at all. And it's getting far enough into the summer. Are these guys going to decide the money's on the short side or the long side from here? And that is going to be 100% dependent on the weather. They definitely are leaning on the long side right now, and they have a lot of fuel for the fire to buy. And that's why this could be an explosive market. If, on the other hand, there's a lot of rain in the forecast, these guys may press the shorts. I think every day that passes, that's less unlikely.
There's not that much meat on the bone.
No, not in corn. Beans, you can make an argument maybe with perfect weather from here on out. But they're not going to see the money on the downside, and that's huge, if you're a producer. You don't want to see them press it, hard when they don't need to, and now there's not an excuse to press it. So I like the look of this year a lot better than the last 2 years. And I think, again, if you learned anything from this episode, is recognizing what kind of year and what kind of potential this could be by knowing your USDA's numbers. You might not like them, but get to know them, or talk to Ryan and I. We'll run through it. We're right now taking away the supply in wheat and corn, and we're seeing these constructive reports. And this is how you change trends and start working your way higher to higher prices. If you get in early on the turns, there's opportunity there. But for your marketing, if you're not, that fine line with marketing incrementally, and then recognize a market that has a lot more potential. And we're right on that line right now. By next week, we're going to know a lot more. I believe Theta Farmer's coming in next week, and we'll have a good discussion on the weather and the outlooks and all that stuff as Ryan's going to be on vacation.
Always a good conversation.
But we again, guys are calling, and we're trying to figure out how to get involved in this on the long side without taking a lot of risk. And there is definitely things that we're doing, so call us if you're interested in that. Beyond that, though, watch the weather.
I got to... First, I'm going to say I'm anxious to go jump in the lake, so I hesitate asking this question. But corn-wheat spread, John.
When to put that on?
Well, are you liking it? I mean, it is moving.
I don't like it with this 100-degree heat in North Dakota right now. Minneapolis tends to overreact. Wheat tends to overreact. I think if this were to pass and you get more towards that harvest, then that's something that you look at. I always like the long wheat, short corn a lot more. I feel there's always a lot less risk in that. That is definitely a spread we have to watch.
Not the way it's setting up this year.
That is not the way it's setting up this year. I have a hard time with wheat being my short leg right now, and I also have a hard time with corn being my long leg. So if you don't like either leg of the spread, you probably should wait on the sidelines. So that's where I'm in on that. Without a doubt, should be watched. But what you said, this market's creating a lot of opportunities. when Kansas harvest was over and the Minneapolis weather was good, I had a client call. He wanted to be long Kansas, short Minneapolis. Just exited that the other day, I think, for 17-cent gain. This creates all kinds of opportunities. Don't be afraid to call. Check in with me because we haven't had markets like this in quite some time.
It is very nice to have options of things to do.
Yes, and there's going to be a lot of difference in an opinion. That's what makes a market. But at least it isn't this gigantic thing that's pretty much guaranteed. And we knew it was big for the last 2 years, and then we just have to deal with the range-bound market that we have and momentum. Now we're going to get more into a fundamental side, which is better, and we have demand already going. So I like the outlook. I love the outlook. That one huge piece of the puzzle here is changing every day. This heat is something else, though. I mean, it's noticeable.
Let's, speaking of fundamentals, let's wrap up with cattle because, man, that live cattle board and cash, what's going on there?
Box beast in a free fall. Feeder buying at the barns in complete denial. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's not a lot of feeders out there. They're not overpaying on purpose. The math's getting worse every day for feeders. Box beef and feeders, I think, are the same price.
That's the one I know.
Yeah. 375. It's like you saw 372 was the last index. I'm sure it's going to be in the 360s shortly. Futures, though, are telling a different tale. They're saying bad demand, bad box beef, heavy cattle, the doldrums of summer. That's what the futures are saying.
But you can't hedge with them.
You cannot. It's very difficult to use that. Very difficult to use that board. Because you're well under the price of cash. Now, cash came off in the biggest chunk that we've seen since the bull market started this last week.
But it didn't seem to get anywhere near the future.
No,
the future did too.
Call it 247 for cash, and we're in the 230s. So we're too cheap. The board's very hard to use to hedge. The numbers already didn't work in cattle. But the future's now going on 3 weeks. Down 13 in the last 14 sessions. All rallies are now faded instead of all dips are now bought. Completely a different market, different outlooks. Hedging's important, especially in feeders at these levels. It's just the board is really bad to use. So I don't have any advice for you on that. Hopefully, in other words, it's just wide basis. The cash market's way up here and futures are way down there. It's hard to hedge the underpriced thing, when the cash market's way better. But it is definitely showing a lot of weakness, and for good reason. Box beef's coming down. We had the packing plants closed. We have heavy cattle. We have there's just a lot of meat in the channels, and there's been since spring. Poultry, pork, everything. There just seems to be a lot of meat around, not moving as much. Now we have oil and gas soaring again. It's probably not going to get better for meats right now. But we still have very few feeder cattle in the countryside. Expect a battle here. I would think we're going to be bottoming here shortly for a bounce. And on that bounce, if we can get one, you know what I think. Yeah, call me and I'll give you more specifics on that. But we'll kind of wrap it up there. We are excited for August. Like I say, we have a new partnership. And we'll kind of debut in August and go over the stuff there. But what I'm excited about is talking about how a true hedging account works, talking about how it works with the bank advisors, us, and putting it all together for you guys to show you how that it does operate, because we do work with these guys, and how it can operate for you and how you can start making changes, and you don't have to take a lot of risk. I mean, it's not full of risk necessarily at all.
I also want to point out that not everyone knows everything. I talk to a lot of guys who feel like they should know this stuff, whatever this stuff might be.
Yes.
This stuff is complicated. Most guys don't know any of it or small pieces of it.
Yeah.
That's why we, including us, which is why we work with other experts. And so it's okay to call and ask even the simplest question, because not everyone knows everything.
Yes.
I cannot fix a tractor.
No.
We don't know stuff. You don't know stuff.
And guys used to lean on guys like us a lot more, and I think they're leaning on Twitter and information online more. Stop doing that, and really talk to people that their job is to be following this. And guys will say, stay away from those guys, and you'll hear all kinds of things. get some good sources of information coming at you, and you'll realize they'll cut out a lot of the homework for you. The trick is to finding that good information. So to help with that, what I'm going to do is I also, as my kids have grown up, the last one just graduated high school, I am going to start a few marketing clubs in this area, within 3 hours a year in a few different directions. And again, working with a partnership, that's part of the deal there. I feel like guys want the information. It's just hard to get it. So hopefully, like in a more relaxed setting, you shouldn't know everything. There's always something. I learn stuff every single day.
Right.
But it's really going to be important as you go forward to really tighten up those numbers. So hopefully we can help you with that.
Love it. All right, John, why don't you leave your number and I'll go jump in a lake.
All right, 218-731-1578 and have fun on vacation.
Thanks, John.